Hi, this is Kim from Dorothy's Daughter. Welcome to my channel and welcome to all of you who are new here. If you'd like to take your sewing to the next level, if you'd like to be inspired and share in a community full of sewists who care about the craft, go ahead and click the subscribe button and also the bell, and you'll be notified when I post a new video. All right, so today I am inspired to tell you about a couple things that I would go back and tell my beginner self. Laura from the Specky Seamstress, she did a playlist full of these things to create a resource for viewers, asking a lot of us vloggers to share their beginner tips. So I decided to share some things that if I could go back and tell myself at a certain point in time, I would. If I went all the way back to when I was a beginner, I'd be telling myself to pick up my toys. Because I began sewing when I was 5. So, but I'm going to go back to when I was like in junior high school and began making my clothes. Okay, that's the time frame that I chose, because if I go way back, I'm too little. All right, so 10 tips that I would go back and tell my younger self. And the first thing is fabric choice is everything. Make a pattern with a suggested fabrics, or if you know enough to vary, if you know about fabric, that's when you can vary from the suggested fabrics. If you don't know fabric, stick to what they tell you. All right. I did a video on this recently, and I'll put a card up here on that. And all I can say is it makes an incredible difference when you use the correct fabric. Most fails, we go back to the wrong fabric for the pattern, okay? Or the wrong pattern for the fabric. I pick fabric first, usually, and then the pattern. I know it's different for different people, but I tend to fall in love with fabric and then find a pattern. Number 2 tip is that the seam ripper is your friend. Most things that get messed up can be fixed. You just have to rip them out with a little bit of patience, and most of the time you can restore it. Maybe you might have to adapt or something once in a while, but most times you can get it right back on track if you just calmly rip it out. Now what I do, if it's late at night, everybody gets tired, and you start making mistakes late at night because you're tired. What I do is I will rip it out and then go to bed. Rather than getting up and ripping it out the next morning, before I quit, I rip it out. And that way I get up and start fresh in the morning. Okay, just a tip. But the seam ripper is your friend. And buy a good one. Buy an ergonomic one. Buy one that's sharp. I had one that was by Kai, and it was great. A great seam ripper. I actually recently lost it, and I bought another one. It's not quite as good, but I hope I'll find it in this room somewhere. I hope I didn't accidentally throw it away. I might have, unfortunately. Number 3 tip is even an 1/8 of an inch matters. And I think I've said this before. I am a fudger. I'm pretty good at fudging, easing things, and making up for not quite so exact seam allowance. There's another place that you can go south really fast. I used to be much, much worse at that than I am now. Now I am aware of how much that can hurt you. But if I could go back and say, you know, if you go off by an 1/8 of an inch on a let's say a shirt side seams, by the time you do that 1/8 of an inch on every single seam, you have added or taken away a 1/2 an inch from the measurement of that garment. So if you're doing something that doesn't have a whole lot of ease, that can mess you up really fast. So definitely pay attention and be exact with your seam allowances. And there's a lot of ways to do that. There are feet, 1/4 inch feet. You can take a hair tie and wrap it around the free arm of your sewing machine so that you can glide things along, or rubber band. There are seam guides that you can get that hook onto machines. Definitely there are ways. There's also very speed, go slow, 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 and make sure those seam allowances are exact. Number 4, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Okay, so you're not going to grow unless you try something new. And you can be afraid of a certain type of pattern. And once you do it, you realize it really wasn't that big a deal. I would suggest this, not the first year that you sew, but maybe the second or third year that you sew. Every couple years, Goodbye Valentino is a blog, and she does ready to wear fast. And I did that in 2018. And there were certain things that I had never tackled because I just had this, not fear, but, dread that I might not turn out great, or I don't know. So yeah, I mean, even if you've been sewing for a long time, you can, be like, oh, I could never make that, But anyway, the premise of the ready to wear fast is that you go a whole entire year and you don't purchase any clothing. You can get gifts, and you can sew, or you can purchase a wedding dress, or an underwear. But if it's coats, bathing suits, anything, you have to make it. So that made me grow, because I had to make a lot of bathing suits for a trip, and I made 5 bathing suits that year. And that is why I can now teach that to you, because I mastered it, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. Same way with coats. I had never done a coat. I'd never done a lined coat. I'd done jackets. I'd never done a lined coat. And, I needed one, so I made one. So definitely, try stuff. If you don't find an organized group for a ready to wear fast, put yourself on one, and get an accountability partner. It really will make you grow. And that was a lot of fun that year. And I did make it. I made it all the way through without purchasing a single item of clothing. And that kind of goes into number 5. Necessity is the mother of invention. So when you need something, if you just make yourself make it the first time, I guarantee you won't want to buy it the next time. So, the ready to wear fast there again would make you do that. Number 6, learn how to draw. This is something I'm just actually growing. This is an area where I'm growing in, and I got my body model from mybodymodel.com, and it's the croquis that is my body shape. And I'll maybe put a couple drawings up here so you can see. And I have been planning out my mix and match separates and my dresses, and I sketch things on my body type to see how they look on me, and then I either make them or not. So you can do your own body model at www.mybodymodel.com, and the gal who does that, her name is Erica, and they're great. And it makes a big difference in being able to visualize what something is going to look like. If you don't know how to draw, you don't have to be an expert drawer, and there's a couple videos online of how to do shading, and how to draw from a line art design of a pattern. So don't be afraid to delve into that, because it's fun. It's fun to sketch something and then see that come to reality. I would take the time as a beginner to learn how to do that. Number 7, spend time learning color theory. I know I'm I'm trying to pick things not everybody would necessarily say, but so if you spend time learning color theory, you'll learn what goes together well, and avoid the situation where you make it but you just don't like it, because the two colors, even though you thought maybe they would go together, once you put them together in reality, didn't work. So yeah, learn some color theory, what complementary colors are, and all those things. And you can do your pattern, you can do your fabric pattern pairing a little bit better. Don't be afraid to match stripes and stripes and floral and things like that. You can match those things, but knowing the complementary colors teaches you how to know which stripes and which florals are going to look together. Okay. Number 8, keep a scrapbook of looks you love, or a Pinterest board or something. I use a Trello board, and I did a video all about Trello a couple, I guess a month or two ago, and I'll put that up here. You can take your camera to the store, which I've done, and take photos of outfits that you like, and then come home and try to recreate it. Make yourself a Pinterest board. Somehow, gather those thoughts. Then when you see, when you really want a dress that is like that certain pattern, you can go search out and find one. Number 9, when you're a beginner, I would stick with indie designers. Now, when I was sewing in 7th grade, when I started making all my clothes, there weren't indie designers that were readily available. So it was the big 4. I tended to like Simplicity and McCall's and maybe a little Butterick. Everybody always scared me about Vogue, although I don't think they're scary at all, but they were to me then. And honestly, if you stick with indie designers, they have sew-alongs, they have Facebook groups with help, they have the same kind of offerings, only maybe even more current than what you find on the Simplicity, Butterick, McCall's website. I would stick with an indie designer. Maybe sew up one of their free patterns, because their free patterns tend to be simple ones, and you'll have help available to you. Love Notions is a great place to start. That's my favorite pattern company of all time. And you could start with the Laundry Day tee, or the classic t-shirt, or you could start with the Cadence dress, which we had a sew along in Friday Sewing School. So you can check that out if you like. So I would stick with indie designers as a beginner and then branch out. So number 10 is coming up with, I always think that if you have a goal, then you need to write down what the goals are, and then maybe flesh out, okay, I'm here and the goal is here. What is going to get me from here to here? And so for sewing, I think that's a list of skills, which has started the premise for me of doing Friday Sewing School for you all. So if you go back to the very beginning of Friday Sewing School, you will see a downloadable list of 50 skills. It's actually a few more than 50 that you should have to be an intermediate sewist. And then this year we've been addressing some of those skills. And we need to have another roundup and see where we're at with that. But we have covered quite a few of those. Definitely go back and start Friday Sewing School from the beginning, and maybe follow along that skills list and find ways to learn what you need to know to go to that next level. So those are my top 10 tips. And then the last thing I'll throw in there is that this is for fun. You don't have to get frustrated. If you're not having a good day, put it down. Or like I said, rip out what you were working on and then put it down. It's not meant to be frustrating or stressful. Keep yourself from those deadlines that make things stressful. Protect this as something that you do for you. I'm not saying don't do favors for friends. I'm saying don't get yourself boxed in to where you are in such overwhelming work that you don't think you're ever going to get out, and I will never do that to myself ever again. So make sure it's fun. Make sure it stays fun. You can say no to hemming someone's pants. You can say no to altering a dress. You can say no to all those things. And I'm empowering you to do that. Unless you want to. If you want to, that's a whole different thing. And, you know, being a giving person is a great thing. But when you're learning and when you're trying to find joy, and if it's your outlet for creativity, don't get boxed in by demands. So anyway, those are my tips. I hope that your sewing journey is fantastic. And thank you to Laura for putting this playlist together. Be sure and check out her playlist. Support all the bloggers who took the time to send you their beginner tips. Have a wonderful day. Happy sewing!